Welcome to Cheaper Than Therapy, a podcast that journeys into conversations that demystify, destigmatize, and desensitize what goes on both inside the therapy room and in daily life.
I'm Vanessa Bennett.
And I'm Danae Logan.
And we are seekers, soul sisters, and holders of sacred space. Every week, we sit down for soul-provoking conversations with fellow seekers, thought leaders, change makers, and even real people during live coaching sessions as they navigate the hard work it takes to be a human.
This is Cheaper Than Therapy.
Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Cheaper Than Therapy. Today we are talking to Claire, and Claire wrote us in talking about, it sounds like, her struggle with a few things. So in the present, perhaps really finding power in yourself versus finding it either in others or in relationship to others. And it sounds like that is stemming from what feels like a rather abrupt breakdown of a very long relationship that felt like there was a lot of betrayal and maybe even some like finger snap personality change type stuff. So I'm going to turn it over to you and have you take us into what's kind of present for you right now.
So I think like the relationship was 13 years long. And we were about to buy a house, and I thought like we were moving into our future and everything was great. And all of a sudden, I find out about, another relationship he's been having for a couple years. And, things just broke off and he changed. He changed overnight. And I had never seen that aspect of him before. The cruelty, it was like another person. It really was. And for me, right now where I'm at, it's been 6 months and it's been a lot of healing and learning. I think my biggest part is just the letting go of what I thought the relationship was. And it's really hard for me to get to that place because I've put up boundaries, obviously, to protect myself, and then putting up those boundaries, it's also been me understanding like he's not going to be a part of my life anymore. And he was my best friend. And we just, we were always so close, and we were the people that people felt really good about, like that couple that we always did things together. And a lot of our friends and family are still in shock over everything that's kind of happened. So I think for me, it's processing what was real, what was the manipulation through his betrayal over the last few years. It's also seeing mourning the life that I thought I was have with him and losing the house and losing that relationship. Those boundaries also come with burning a bridge I never thought I was going to have to walk over. I never thought I thought at the very least we would stay friends. And that's really what I kind of went into this with, is trying to hold on, and not seeing in those moments of me holding on was me letting myself down, because it was me losing my power with him, because that was what this is kind of broken down into. So I think that's like the hardest part for me right now, is understanding what was real, what wasn't, with the manipulation. And if he even like loved me, obviously I loved him unconditionally, as I like to say, and learning about like the unconditional aspects of that, it was also understanding that it wasn't just a love that I was giving him. It was in those moments when I will always say like he chased shiny objects. And finding that out, as I truly just didn't want to be disappointed in him. And that was me pulling back my boundaries because on myself over and over and over again. So in letting go of this relationship, I'm learning that in a sense, I lost myself in a way I never wanted to. I was trying to hold on to so many aspects of who I was and being a powerful woman. And when I lost him, I lost myself. And it was just a very surreal kind of feeling. And it's very hard for me to process that aspect of it, of people see me as being strong and having strength. And I don't see that within myself. And it's really, really hard for me.
Can I ask you just a quick clarifying question? So you said it's been 6 months since the breakup. Are you working with a therapist to process this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Right away. I did. I got it there. I knew it. I knew I was going to need somebody to connect to constantly. Do this.
Yeah. I mean, smart woman. And I feel like you can hear it so much in the way that you're already processing all of what this is. And
things,
I mean, just first off, I want you to be here so I can just like, so big. I kind of want to hold you and just like have a good cry for a second, because it is that big. 13 years of my life. My God, you know? And you said, when I lost him, I lost myself. I want us to start with just like the biggest reframe ever. When I lost this relationship, I came into this ability to regain some part of myself that I'd lost a long time ago. Right?
Yeah, that hits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm mindful of it only being 6 months fresh, right? So a lot of the reframing and the being able to look at things definitely comes with time. And that's why I asked, like, make sure you have a therapist, right? Because a lot of what I want to, I guess, mirror back to you is in some of the language that you're using around the breakup, but also about the relationship and about how he was or how you were. Betrayal is so hard because it's like this seismic internal sense of self shift, right? It's not just like situational. But in saying that, I think over the next, however many months and working through and processing, and it's going to be a long journey, there's going to be a little bit of, and this is to kind of jump off of what Danae was saying, where actually in the relationship did I lose myself?
Yes.
Because it didn't happen in the breakup.
Yes.
Right. At what point did that happen? And in what ways did that happen? Right. In what areas of the relationship was I potentially pretending something wasn't showing itself to me for the sake of trying to not rock the boat?
Yeah.
In what places of the relationship was I not being my most authentic self for fear of abandonment?
Yep.
Right. Because, and this is usually a pretty unpopular opinion, there's always two people in every relationship, even the person who got quote unquote betrayed. Right. And each person plays a role in it. And that's not to put blame on you, but that's to say, holy shit, I had this opportunity to Danae's point, reclaim myself if I can be willing to say, what was my part in this?
Yes. And I feel like part of that in learning, it was a dance. So it's definitely highlights like the codependency aspects of me with him. So if he wasn't okay, I can give that extra energy. I can give that extra part of myself. And that made me feel valued. That made me feel good because I was helping him and not realizing in my way of helping him was actually not helping at all. Like how I in giving that energy, I felt like I had it to give and it was like a gift, but actually I was losing myself in those moments constantly.
Right.
And for him, I wasn't allowing himself to figure out what he needed to figure out for himself and to have consequences earlier on in the relationship or within his life. There would also be moments, I know, like when we would have maybe like disagreements and I would instantly kind of put that wall up and I would just be like, okay, well, I'll just take care of it myself. And when I did that, I wasn't valuing him and what he can bring to the relationship or to help in that moment. But I also wasn't allowing him to show up and show me that he could show up because I just was instantly, okay, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. I always can. I always do. All the planning, all the things that needed to get done. And it became easy for him and comfortable for him. But then it was a way for me to not allow him to be authentic, I think, or if he was being authentic, and that's kind of where it kind of goes down to now, with everything. At what points was he not being authentic? When did the betrayal really start? When did the manipulation really come about?
But here's the thing though. I actually, and this I feel like is our logical brain's way of wanting to make sense of things that happen, right? It's like you get into a car accident and your brain will go over and over and over the details to try to figure out what happened. I get that from a very human, the way that our brain is structured aspect. I understand that. And I think sometimes that can be a little bit of like chasing your tail.
Yeah.
Because what I don't think is actually the quote unquote important thing in this processing for you is to figure out, when did I start becoming manipulated? It's to start figuring out, at what point did I start allowing myself or abandoning myself or turning the blind eye, or right, all the kind of questions we were talking about earlier. So it's taking your power back in this, because this isn't about figuring out at what point did he start doing this thing to me. That's not what we're trying to get to answer.
I just want to jump in because I kind of heard what Claire said a little bit different.
Okay.
I heard a little bit of, I actually did hear you taking some responsibility.
No, I did too.
In terms of the way that you sort of might have infantilized him a little bit. And you might have sort of like done things that he could have done for himself, thus making him feel less powerful. And, you know, to V's point, then abandoning myself in the space of doing that, then me sort of being, you know, not authentic to like what my needs are in this moment and how this actually feels for me. I'll just handle it. I'll just do it. I'll just be the mother, right?
Swallow the resentment or whatever.
Yeah. But I think it's a dance of what you're saying, V, right? Like, yes, we absolutely have to, I don't know. I do hear you already starting to take some ownership of like, yeah, well, this is the part that I was playing in that, you know, and I think that is really important.
I think what I'm trying to get at, and I'm probably not articulating it well, is sometimes I feel like it can be a futile effort or a distraction for us to try to figure out what they did to us. And I'm not saying that's all you're doing. I'm just saying, when I hear the words of like, at what point did the manipulation start? Right? Like, at what point did this start happening? Like, it's good to know, but also just be mindful of going down a path where it's like, I'm trying to figure him out versus, right? Like, okay, I can see the manipulation and I can see where I was in that dance, right? Which you're doing, but it's just like a language thing, I guess I'm saying, to be mindful of.
And I guess I didn't hear manipulation as much, but I will say some of what we're talking about is you manipulating him, right? Like, that's manipulation on your part, if we're really honest.
Totally. I mean, that's what control is, right?
Yes. Right. That it was easier for me to control what I knew I had control of in those moments.
Right.
Because then I wouldn't abandon myself.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't lose what I thought that I had within either myself and within the relationship. So that's a lot of learnings, like, on my part. And like Vanessa said, especially like, I rationalize a lot. I try to rationalize it a lot because it makes it easier to process, because it's kind of hard to look back and feel like, did I even mean anything to this person? Did any of our life mean anything? And understanding, like I said, like the parts of letting go, like the detaching with love, is really hard for me, because the consequences that I've laid to protect myself, or the boundaries I've laid to protect myself, are also double-edged sword for the consequences of like losing that relationship and him being on his own in something that I thought I was going to have forever. So that's hard for me, is to really, I think like what it comes down to is, I have moments where I'm angry that this all happened, that he took us to this place, regardless of my responsibility for it. Him cheating on me is something we could have handled very differently. And he could have just said, I need to go on my own, and I would have been okay with it, and we could have stayed friends. But then it's also kind of like having empathy and compassion for what he was going through too. It's kind of hard to balance the compassion and the anger.
You know, Claire, the thing I want to say about what you said about sort of balancing this anger and also the empathy for what that must have been like for him, I think is so powerful. We talk a lot about holding the tension of the opposites. And I think that a lot of times relationally, what we have to hold is the complexity of who we are as humans. And when we're in that logical space in our brains, we get into a lot of black and white thinking sometimes, right? Like this person is either, a devil or he's someone who loved me. We either had a relationship that was real or the whole thing was bullshit, right? Like, no, it was actually very nuanced because we are very nuanced. And, early on, you said something like, it's just really hard because the person that I thought I knew for these 13 years has become so cold. And I think a lot of times what I talk about in our singlehood groups a lot is we do have to drop into empathy with like how hard it is for sometimes people to have that confronting conversation, right? Like we'll talk about ghosting a lot of times. And I'm like, have you ever tried telling someone you're not interested in them when they're like super interested in you? It's hard, right? And I think sometimes the complexity of I love someone and the way that our dynamic has been playing out for a really long time now is maybe for both of us, like we're dying inside. And I know I can't do this anymore, but I don't know how to look her in the face and say that. So I'm going to act out in another way. I'm going to do something that makes me feel alive in another way. Oof, I wish he could have had the courage to stand in my face and tell me the truth. Most of us don't know how to do that.
Because I think like in not hearing that, I felt like trash.
That's
like he didn't value me. And it's hard when I really was all in and who we were in our relationship. So yes, that's very hard to process.
And, I think also what's really important in this idea of holding the tension of the opposites is not to force ourselves to be in a place of empathy when we're in a place of anger.
Yeah.
Because sometimes just be fucking mad.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that. Right? Like anger as an emotion really just means that a boundary was crossed. We were, betrayed in some way, right? Like it is, there's some forward trajectory that comes with anger. Now, I'm not saying live there.
Yeah.
Right. But I also find it to be sometimes unproductive when I'm in a place of being mad to try to turn that off and find empathy in that moment. Right. Like, I'm fucking mad. This happened. How could he do this? And in that moment, it's like, Vanessa, try to be empathetic. He was like, sometimes, yeah, but also sometimes that just feels like I'm actually shutting down my anger and I'm not actually sitting with it and letting it have space. I'm kind of shaming it out. I shouldn't feel that way. I should actually feel empathetic because he was going through a rough time too. Yeah. And I'm still fucking mad. They can both be true.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't think we have to shut down the complexity of, I still love this person and I'm pissed, and I'm right?
Yes.
Like both things can exist and probably will within 2 minutes of one another quite often, right?
Absolutely. Because like the parts that were hard is like we were a week away from closing on the house we were building when this all, and it's like you were already with her for this last year. So 7 months at this time, we're going to see this house every single week. So at what point could you have not have said like, I'm not ready to do the house because I thought we were moving forward in our life. And that's the part that does make me angry because I'm like, you had plenty of opportunity where I have been, if you're not happy here, I understand. And I respect that, during different moments in our relationship through over the years, like I want him to be happy and that's all I ever wanted. So if it wasn't going to be with me, that's okay. I understand that. I just wanted the best for him. So I felt like going down this house thing, that makes me angry because I'm like, wow, you took me to the moment a week before we were signing for the keys for this house, and having to let that dream go. It wasn't just the relationship, it was the life that we were going to have together. And that makes me angry. That really is hard for me to get past.
What I just want to throw in, and a little bit with, the knowledge that like, actually when this episode comes out, it's going to be a few months from now. And then you might listen to it 6 months from now and a year from now and hear things differently. So I really want to honor what Vanessa said, which is 6 months out, I'm going to feel very different about this than I will a year from now. Right. And, yes, I get to be angry in this moment in time about the house, and denial ain't just a river in Egypt, right? Like, brother was in some serious denial, and you will see the way that denial played out for him, and also some of the ways that denial played out for you, Claire.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too about anger that's so interesting, is that the longer you're in this and the more you're processing it, this anger towards him, which is totally justified, you might find that you're really pissed at yourself too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do feel that. I do have moments of that now when I can really look within, because at some point it feels like when I lost myself, I'm mad at myself for giving every aspect of who I was to him.
Mhm.
And I'm like, wow, why did I go to that place? How did I get to be that vulnerable? And not that vulnerability is not great, because it is, but to the place where I just like let it down to where I
Weren't you anymore?
had no buffers, like nothing. And I do feel disappointment in myself for doing that too.
Now, and here's the thing, I'm not trying to bypass what's going on in this moment, but there's also, when you say those words and I hear them coming from your mouth, there's also a twinge of like, I don't know if excitement is the wrong word, but like excitement for I would almost guarantee you're not going to put yourself in a situation again where you lose yourself in this way. And you're not authentic and honest with yourself, with your partner, right? So there is a little bit of me that's like, the pain is there, it's real. And what a huge lesson you are in the midst of unpacking and untangling and learning and integrating right now. Because I guarantee you're not going to be in the same place again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love these moments where you and I are thinking the exact same thing at the same time, B. It like gives me a little delight, because, you guys that are listening can't see Claire, but like, I can see. I like have the vision of what a powerful woman you are. Like, it's so clear. And I will tell you something, sister, this is something you're going to hear down the road and understand what I mean. This relationship was too small for you.
Thank you.
You will see that.
You
outgrew it.
Yeah. Yes, I know. And I do know that. It's those moments when people tell me they see strength in me. And right now I don't see strength, because I feel like I've lost so much control. But I know that I will. Mm-hmm. I know that I will find that person, that version, that happy girl that I was, for sure, on the other side. And that's what I'm working towards through this.
And also, sometimes with the people who are closest to us, when they say things like that, it's also okay to say, I don't feel strong right now.
Yes.
Yeah. And to let them see that, and let them support you while you cry, while you don't feel so great about yourself, because that strengthens those relationships too. Absolutely. And helps you find the strength actually on the other side.
Yes. My core group, honestly, my friends have shown up in a way that I just could never be thankful enough.
To have that support.
Yes.
Claire, you're definitely one of those where I'm going to need you to keep us posted and tell us how you're doing. Okay.
I absolutely will. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much for bringing this to us. We're going to be thinking about you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, love.
Hi, I'm Kirsten.
And I'm Graham. We're two moms who've been real life best friends for more than 2 decades. And for the last 5 years, we've had this podcast.
And quite to our surprise, thousands of people actually listen. Our podcast, Welcome Home, is basically the home ec class you wish you'd been offered.
And a lot of other things you never asked for. But trust us, you're going to love it.
I mean, they might not, Graham. We're not for everybody.
But if you're into entertaining, home decor, wellness, Halloween, puppies and pizza, anything light and fun, then we might be your new best friends.
Come join us for Welcome Home.
Man. I think so many of us can sense and feel into, even if we haven't had the exact same experience, the feeling of being betrayed in some way. It's so palpable. And that's why I said to her, like, it throws off your entire sense of like self.
Yeah. And even if it's not betrayal, that just like someone I have loved, and this person for whatever reason can't be in my life anymore. And so there's the grief and loss of losing someone who's meant so much to me, in addition to the betrayal that you're talking about. I think, like,
and losing like what I thought my life was, right? Like there's grief
Yes.
in that I don't think a lot of people talk about enough, which is like, you're not just grieving a person, you're also grieving an entire life that you thought you were going to have. And that can be really disorienting.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I feel
Yeah.
like there was just so much. I mean, to me, this is why when these moments happen, like we will all have these like cataclysmic, shake your life, explode your life moments where it's like, now get your team, right? Like when I've had these moments, it's like, let me get my coach, let me get my therapist, let me get Vanessa. Like I think this, like,
Surround yourself.
Yeah, you can hear it in her voice, how much she is already really doing the work of unpacking, slowly starting to look at her part, slowly like getting bearings of myself again. And we can get really stuck in a place for a really long time if we don't actively seek out doing the work immediately, like get in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think that's to say like, somebody hearing this, it's like, I don't think that's to say like, oh, you don't get to allow yourself to like be in it. It's like, no, but you also have to take a really active role in the processing, like processing isn't actually, it's an active thing.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Processing might be sitting in your therapist's office crying for 50 minutes straight, several sessions in a row.
It's active, like it really is about like rolling up your sleeves and like choosing to show up, whatever that looks like in that day or that moment or that minute. Could shift from time to time, but yeah, it's, and it can be exhausting at times. And some days give yourself a break and that's fine. And then the next day, get right back to your therapist's office. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's good. She'll be good, but damn, I feel the pain.
Yeah.
It's like so present.
But to your point, I'm not worried about her at all. Like, I feel like she's one of those, we're going to hear about that girl because she's got some power. I can see it in her.
Such a catalyst for people, these kind of experiences. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Cheaper Than Therapy.
Be sure to share it with a friend, subscribe, and give us a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
And if you want to connect with us more, find us on Instagram at Cheaper Than Therapy, the podcast.